Hi there, it's just me again. As promised, I am back to talk a little bit more about some other articles that I read on the Bitter Winter website. It's actually quite interesting to read, and I have a couple that I'd like to talk about, but for now I'll just look at this one, and this will be a fairly brief video, I promise. This one is can Christian pastors call other religions satanic without going to jail? Quite interesting. And Massimo has written this article, and he's talking about a situation that has arisen in Brazil where a evangelical pastor had made very derogatory kind of statements about the Afro-Brazilian religions. It says here that this evangelical pastor, he criticised the Afro-Brazilian religions, saying that they pay reference to evil, satanic entities, spirits of darkness. He insisted that the entities worshipped within mythology, even within religions of African origin, are demons, and that Satan is trying to establish portals to enslave, imprison, and intoxicate our lives and cities. So it says the Afro-Brazilian devotees felt offended, and they obviously took him to court because of his statements about them. It says here in the article that he was sentenced for his offences to 2.5 years in jail, although freed on bail on the conditions that he pays a heavy fine equivalent to US $20,000 and deletes the offending remarks from social media. So this pastor was found guilty and sentenced to pay this fine. And this created a bit of an uproar in Brazil because there had been I believe it was a Catholic priest who had been sued for making similar statements. I'm just trying to see if he made the statements against the same group or not. Yes, sounds like he did. Okay, so that the evangelical pastor was sentenced to jail, but instead he had to pay this fine of $20,000 and remove his offending remarks from social media. But the Catholic priest, the court found that his comments were intolerant, pedantic, and arrogant, and deserved moral and ethical condemnation, but they were seen as part of freedom of expression. So this priest was allowed to make the same kind of remarks with impunity, basically, whereas the other one got sentenced. So Massimo did start out this article by saying that the European Court of Human Rights at one time had said that it was okay to actually call a religious movement a cult. It wasn't forbidden. But in 2022, he talks about the Tonchev decision, so I'm not sure what that case is. That was reversed. Its past case law was reversed, and it stated that cult and similar expressions may promote discrimination and violence. So when I read this bit about the word cult promoting discrimination and violence, I did think about the Jehovah's Witnesses' use of the word apostate. Use of that word also promotes discrimination, and not physical violence, but a kind of psychological violence. So in this paragraph, he writes that, so after saying that it's no longer seen as, well, I don't know if they've actually, but it says this Tonchev decision actually prohibited governments and state authorities from using the word cult to describe groups. But Massimo says they left open the question whether similar expressions may be used by non-state actors and in private controversies. So I was wondering, he talks about it's been prohibited by governments, but there's a question mark over whether non-state actors should also refrain from using it. And a non-state actor I could think of would be our religions, our religious charities that have charity registration, thereby endorsed by the state. So perhaps they also should be prohibited from using words that promote discrimination and violence. And of course, the Jehovah's Witnesses, I haven't heard of them calling other groups cults, but we do know that in all their literature they refer to the sects of Christendom, sect as in like the dictionary definition, as being part of Babylon the Great, the harlot, the prostitute, or the daughters of the prostitute that are committing fornication with the kings of the earth. So they do use a lot of language that's not particularly flattering about them. But this Tonchev decision is specifically about the word cult. There's an interesting point, I think it's towards the end of this article, a comment that a evangelical made. There's a theologian, an evangelical theologian called Iago Martins, and he said any religion other than Christianity is false. Every sacrifice made to other gods is made to demons. In Islam, they worship demons. In Candomblé, they worship demons. In Umbanda, they worship demons. If every pastor is going to be arrested for preaching what the Bible says, let them arrest us all. So he kind of has a point there, because that is what the Bible says. Teachings of demons, synagogue of Satan, there's a lot of that language in the Bible. And Massimo goes on to say, as I said, one religious leader's religious liberty in criticising other religions is another's hate speech. The border is not well defined by the law and difficult to grasp. These cases are only to be decided on a case-by-case basis and taking context into account. And then he suggests that perhaps the Catholic priest was treated in a kindlier way because his words were less likely to be acted upon, whereas the words from, according to Massimo, what the evangelical pastor said was more likely to incite violence against the Afro-Brazilian religions. So again, this makes me think about the kind of hate speech that Jehovah's Witnesses use against the former members that they call apostates, who are basically just any former members that have spoken out openly and criticised the organisation. Even if those criticisms are legitimate, they are still termed as apostates. And the hate speech that the organisation has used against apostates is pretty nasty, and I talked about it a bit in my previous video. The talk given at the 2013 Regional Convention, a talk called Beware of Human Apostates, I think that's what it was called, where apostates were described as Satan's helpers in his evil kitchen, cooking up wicked reasonings and seasoning their brew with poisonous lies, and a lot of other rhetoric implying that apostates are poisonous and infectious. And a few years earlier, apostates were said to be mentally diseased, but then the Jehovah's Witnesses removed those words from their revised New World Translation, so they tend not to use those particular words anymore. But their speech, their hate speech against former members, certainly does incite to discrimination and to psychological violence. I know a lot of former members who have voiced a legitimate concern or criticism about the organisation and who have either been disfellowshipped for it or have disassociated, have had to endure this horrible speech about them, and to see how it's actually affected their relationships with their spouses, with their children, their wider family, how they've been demonised by the organisation, and an otherwise loving family, you know, a husband who has lovingly provided for his wife and children for many years and loves them, is suddenly viewed by them as being something poisonous and infectious and dangerous. So as I said in my last video, I feel it's extremely irresponsible of the organisation to demonise former members in this way, and it's very unwarranted. So anyway, I just found this just an interesting little article, and it's so true that, I mean, if you go to Bitter Winter website and you read all the articles there, all the scribbling and squabbling between religions, and here we have one religion saying, no, you worship Satan, and the other saying, no, you worship Satan, no, you worship Satan, stop persecuting us, we're innocent, well, you're persecuting it, you know, this ridiculous backwards and forwards. And of course it does stem from the Bible and their interpretations of it. It reminds me of a couple of bullies in a schoolyard scrapping about who's got the best dad. You know, my dad's better than your dad. No, my dad's better than yours. And then they're throwing punches, you know. And what I would do is send both of them home, stand them down from school, and make them sort out their differences before they can come back to school, so that the school can enjoy some peace. So this is what we see with these religions accusing each other of the same things. The Jehovah's Witnesses do it. They're very, very good at doing that. And it kind of leaves you wondering, who needs it? If this is what religion does, who needs it? Anyway, I will just leave it there. Bye.